Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give everyone just a couple more seconds before we begin to continue joining and settling in. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's training for education service providers for the South Carolina Education Scholarship Trust Fund Program. My name is Manuela Peralta. I am a senior implementation specialist here at ClassWallet, and I will be leading today's training. And joining me is a representative from the South Carolina Department of Education here to answer any programmatic questions. Here's an agenda as to what we'll go over. We'll review the program overview, what the approved expenses are for the ESTF program, what the requirements are for education service providers, how you will be able to register and create your ClassWallet account. We'll review what the invoice guidelines are, how you'll be able to receive payments, how to connect with families, and then towards the end, we will have a time allotted to answer any questions that come to mind as I go through the presentation. If you do have any questions as we're going through the training, please feel free to drop them on the Q&A box, either at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on your settings, and we'll address those as I go through the presentation and then at the end as well. Okay. On the chat, I will also go ahead and drop some helpful resources for you to navigate through. Okay. So starting off with the program overview. So the Education Scholarship Trust Fund Program is administered by the South Carolina Department of Education, and it allows qualifying South Carolina families to apply for a scholarship of $7,500 per student for the 25-26 school year. And these scholarship funds can be used to create a customized and flexible education for their children. For the upcoming school year, so for the 25-26 school year, students will receive their funds through ClassWallet, which is a digital wallet platform that the South Carolina Department of Education has partnered with. The first quarterly deposit for families was already distributed on July 21st to the eligible families received up to then. And the ClassWallet digital wallet is what program participants will be using to actually use their ESTF funds. So what are the approved expenses for the ESTF program? So for this year, ESTF funds could be used to pay for tuition and approved fees to independent schools. So this includes uniform fees, transportation fees, registration fees. Those types of fees would be allowed to be paid to approved independent schools. Textbooks and student workbooks for grades kindergarten through 12th grade can also be purchased, and this is in the subjects of math, English, science, social studies, and foreign language. Curriculum in those same subject areas is also allowed, as well as instructional materials. So these are items like binders, papers, rulers, scissors. Those are all items that families can purchase using their ESTF funds. Families can also pay for tutoring services. So this is also in those same subject areas, math, English, science, social studies, and foreign language. And then any supply fees charged by the tutor could also be paid using the ESTF funds. Computer hardware, such as a laptop, desktops, monitors, and a tablet computer, could be purchased. However, every one of these items is limited to the purchase of one of each item every 2 years. And any computers classified as gaming computers are not allowed. However, product warranties as part of the purchase are eligible to be approved. Okay. Tech devices are also an approved expense, so this includes items such as printers and ink, headphones, keyboards, a mouse or a mouse pad. Those are all examples of tech devices that are approved. Examples of tech devices that are not approved include 3D printers, TVs, speakers, and hard drives. Families can also pay for their ESTF students' national norm reference exam. This could be like an AP exam or any similar assessment. And then any test prep classes or courses are also approved. Um, Families can also pay for their students' educational therapy using ESTF funds. So this includes therapy such as ABA therapy, speech, physical, occupational, vision therapy, as well as dyslexia and dysgraphia therapies. And then any fees for the initial evaluation or any required therapy equipment used during the therapy service, could also be paid using these funds. And services provided by your student's non-resident school district, and these services includes anything like individual classes, after-school tutoring services, any out-of-district fees, transportation services. Those are all things that could be paid using ESTF funds. And then it is important to note that transportation is capped at $3,000 per school year. Okay. And then any fees for transportation should be invoiced separately. And this is to keep track to ensure that it does not exceed the $3,000 for the school year. So moving on to the background checks and attestation requirements for service providers. So any provider that is an individual provider, so if you are not part of a company or an LLC or a corporation, then this would apply to you. You will need to complete a background check. The details on the background check and step-by-step instructions can be found on the ESP application. Yeah. And then any facilities, including non-public schools, will need to attest that they perform background checks on staff members. And then all providers will need to accept an attestation within the ESP application just to make sure that to ensure that you have read and understand what the program requirements are and that you agree to follow those guidelines. If you've already been approved, odds are that you have already completed some, if not all of these, um, but just to make sure that everyone is aware that these are requirements. Some additional requirements for service providers include complying with all applicable health and safety laws or codes, holding a valid occupancy permit. Service providers should not unlawfully discriminate on the basis of race, color, or national origin. Service providers must also conduct criminal background checks on employees and should exclude from employment anyone who is either not permitted by state law to work in a school, anyone who might reasonably pose a threat to the safety of students, or is listed on the federal, state, or other central child abuse registry. You must also provide the parents of the students that you are providing services to with a receipt or invoice for the qualifying expense or service, and we'll go over what those invoice guidelines are. And then additionally, if you do receive over $50,000 in ESTF funds, you will be required to file a surety bond with the department. So moving on to testing requirements for service providers. And this is specifically for service providers that provide full-time academic instruction, such as an independent school. So first, you need to ensure that each ESTF student takes a nationally norm-referenced or formative assessment and that the parent or guardian receives a written report of the student's performance on the assessment. Okay. And then a list of those approved assessments can be found on slide 12 of this training guide. You must also collect high school graduation information of scholarship students, and you'll be required to provide this information to the department on an annual basis, disaggregated by grade level, gender, family income level, race, and English learner status. Okay. So the ClassWallet registration and linking your bank account. Some of you may have already completed this process. If you already have access to your ClassWallet account, you don't need to go over this again. This is mainly for those new providers that may not have had their ClassWallet account created yet. Okay. So as you know, the first step was to complete the service provider application. After your application has been approved, you should have received an email letting you know and congratulating you and welcoming you into the program. And then additionally, you would have received a separate email with a ClassWallet registration link. You must follow that link, and then that will take you over to start the process. In that page, you'll click where it says create an account, and then you'll be routed over to a page that is going to ask you some information about your company. This includes your company's name, a website, and an address. You'll then be required to review the legal terms and conditions. And then lastly, you'll enter your login information. It is important to note that the email address used within the application is the same email address that is going to receive the ClassWallet registration link. Okay. So if someone else within your organization needs to receive that registration link, please reach out to ClassWallet's customer support team and we'll be able to change the information accordingly. Okay. And then you'll enter create your password, re-enter your password, and then you'll review your information. If everything looks correct, you can submit your registration. So that's part one of your ClassWallet registration process. Part two of your ClassWallet registration process will be to actually link your bank account. The reason that the linking of a bank account is required is because families will be issuing payments to you for the services received within their ClassWallet account using their ESTF funds. And in order for ClassWallet to route those payments over to you, those payments will need to be ACH'd to you, and and those payments are ACH'd to the linked bank account. Yeah. So in your ClassWallet homepage, after you already completed the registration, on the top left corner, you'll see a button that says Link Bank Account. You'll click on that button, and then you'll be required to enter your bank account number, your routing number, the bank's name, the name on the account, and then any display or nickname for the bank. You'll then be required to complete a W-9 form. Okay. This W-9 form does not need to be downloaded and then re-uploaded. You'll be able to fill it out directly through your ClassWallet account. And then after you've completed those two steps, you have successfully linked your bank account and ESTF families will be able to start issuing payments to you. Okay. So moving on to the invoices and the invoice guidelines. So to tell you guys what the life cycle is for a family and their ClassWallet account, and how they'll actually be able to receive services and for you to receive payments. The first step is that the family will need to reach out to the service provider in order to request that services be provided. So this they might be reaching out to a tutor to get tutoring services. They might be reaching out to a therapy to receive physical therapy, for example, or maybe this is a student that attends a independent school and the school is providing learning services, so they would be charged tuition in this case. Okay. Then after you consult with the parent, you will be required to provide an invoice to the family. And this invoice can be provided to them either before or after the service has been rendered. That is up to you and the family to decide. And this invoice does need to be uploaded in ClassWallet by families in either a PDF, JPEG, or PNG file format. So if you already provide the invoice to the family in one of these three formats, it'll make things a little bit easier on their end. And then the invoice does need to include the vendor's name and address. It should include the name of the student and the parent. It should include the date that the invoice was generated, the date of the service. So whether this is for maybe tutoring services provided on July 3rd, July 5th, and July 7th, or maybe this is quarter one tuition. That's what the date of service would be. And then what the payment is for. So is this for therapy, for tutoring, for tuition? And then lastly, the total amount due. Families will then upload that invoice in their ClassWallet account, and we'll go over what that process will look like for families in just a little bit here. Okay, some additional guidelines for you to keep in mind. If you would like to include more than one student on an invoice, you can. So, for example, if you are providing services to a family that has multiple ESTF students, you can include more than one student on one invoice. However, it's just important that they are listed separately because the parent will be required to upload that invoice on their respective student's ClassWallet account. Okay. No handwritten documentation or invoices will be accepted, so they will need to be typed. And then for transportation fees, those must be invoiced separately. So if you are a school that is charging tuition and transportation, it is just a request for those transportation fees to be in a separate invoice, and to keep in mind that those are capped at $3,000 per year. And then again, payment for services can be made prior to the service being rendered or after the service being rendered. That will be up to you and the family to mutually agree on. However, only invoices for services provided after July 1st, 2025 will be eligible to be approved. Any payments for services provided before July 1st are not eligible to be approved. So receiving payments. Okay. So again, to reiterate the process, the family will reach out to the service provider to request to receive services from. The way that families will find service providers is through the public-facing list of service providers that the department is posting on their website, which has been linked on the chat here, but I will go ahead and relink that. So the families will go ahead and view that list, see the vendor that they are interested in receiving services from. They'll reach out to that vendor. Once you guys come to an agreement on price and dates and service dates, then you'll provide the invoice to the family. Okay? And then once that family receives the invoice, they'll then upload that invoice in ClassWallet. And this is how they'll do that. So in ClassWallet, families will have the option to pay a vendor. So once they select the pay a vendor button, it's going to route them over to a screen that looks very similar to this. And you can find step-by-step instructions on this as well on slide 20. So they'll view all the vendors. They'll search for the vendor that they want to issue a payment to. So if I'm issuing a payment to a tutor, they would type in that tutor's company or business name here. Once they find the tutor, they'll select the vendor. They'll then be required to enter the payment amount, so how much should be paid to the vendor. They'll be required to upload the invoice that you provided to the family, and they will be required to select an applicable category that applies to that transaction. So whether it's for tutoring, for tuition, they will just select the applicable category. This transaction, once they submit it, then goes into a review queue. So there is a dedicated team that is actively reviewing all transactions submitted by families, by ESTF families. Okay. And things that the validations team is looking for is to make sure that the expense and the service that is being provided actually abides by programmatic guidelines and is actually an approved expense. And they're also searching to make sure that all the requirements on the invoice guidelines are shown on the actual invoice that was uploaded by the family. Okay. Once that transaction is reviewed, if it's deemed approved, then the family will receive an email letting them know that the payment has been approved. And then you, as the service provider that they are issuing a payment to, will also receive an email letting you know that a payment has been approved for your organization. You will then receive that payment in your linked bank account within 2 to 10 business days of the approval. Okay. And some other important information. So in your ClassWallet account, you have access to your vendor settings and your profile. Okay. In ClassWallet, as a service provider, you are known as a direct pay vendor. Okay. And that term comes from families issuing a direct payment to you. So that's what that direct pay comes from. Yep. So in your direct pay ClassWallet account, you'll be able to view your vendor profile information. So your company name, your website, and the description you entered, and then any billing address that you entered upon your registration. And then you can choose whether or not you want to make that visible. So if you need to make any updates to this information, you can do so directly through your vendor settings and profile. You also have access to user management through your direct pay account. Okay. So let's say you might be someone in your organization that completed that application, but you have someone else within your company that should also have access to reporting within the ClassWallet account, and that should have visibility into the payments received from families. If you do fall under this scenario, you can invite additional administrators and users into your ClassWallet account, and you'll do that through the user management feature. Okay, so you'll click on Send Invitation. You'll then enter the name and the last name and the email address of the person within your organization that you want to invite. And then you'll select a role for them. So you'll have two roles to choose from. First one being an admin. So administrators have the ability to update the bank account information that is linked on the ClassWallet account. They can view reporting, and they can also manage the vendor profile information. Whereas that user role can only view payment reports and manage their own credentials. Okay. And vendor settings and credential. So families, or excuse me, service providers and direct pay vendors also have the ability to upload credentials in your ClassWallet account. So If you have any certifications or any licenses that you would like to upload to your account, you can do so. Just note that this is not visible to families. This is more just internal for you to keep track of. Okay. And moving on to approved payments and how you'll be able to keep track of the payments received. So, as I mentioned, whenever a transaction is approved for your organization or for your company, you'll receive an email letting you know that that transaction has been approved. And then you also have a payment report in your ClassWallet account. So in addition to the email, you'll also see that payment reflected on your payment report. Okay. In order to access the payment report, you'll simply just log into your ClassWallet account. You'll see a button that says Payment Report on the Reports tile in your account, and there you'll be able to see that information. And a couple different things that that payment report includes. So it includes the student name, it includes a PO number. That PO number is a ClassWallet generated PO number that the family has visibility to, and the state also has a visibility to, and you as the service provider also have visibility to it. Okay. You'll also be able to see the status of the payment being settled into your bank account. Okay. So I do want to call out that there is a distinction between um, that there is a difference between when you actually see the payment in your ClassWallet account. So, as I mentioned, families will submit the payment and then that will go into a review queue. You will not see the payment reflected in your account until that payment is approved. If it's just submitted or if the payment is rejected, you will not be able to see that information. You only see it once it is approved. So what those status definitions are within your payment report is the status of that approved payment being settled into your bank account. So starting off with the queued status, this means that the transaction has been approved and is being readied for processing. If you see it on the initiated status, that means that the transaction has been sent to our processor. Processing means that our processor has received the payment and the funds are being moved from the student's account to our processor into your linked bank account. And then settled means that you should already see that deposit reflected in your bank account. So connecting with families. So I see some questions here as well as to like how families will be able to actually find you as a service provider that provides services. Okay. So I'm actually going to go away from the presentation for a little bit here. And one of the links that was posted on the chat is the link to the department's website. The department is posting a publicly facing list of service providers that have been approved to participate in the program for the 25-26 school year. In order to access that, you can go to this link here. And if you're unable to grab it, you can contact our customer support team after this and we'll be able to resend that link, but it is posted on the chat for now. In this website, you'll see where it says 2025-26 approved education service providers. This was last updated on July 25th and is being updated by the department on a weekly basis to account for any new service providers that apply and are approved. Okay. So once you click that, you will see the Excel file and that will come up. And this is how families will be able to search for service providers that have been approved and to see who it is that maybe they want to receive services from. So they have the company name, what type of provider they are, the grade that they serve, the subject that they serve, the tutor, and then for tutors, they have the grade type and the range, as well as the address, and the website information and contact information. Okay. In column M here, you'll see whether or not the service provider is ready to receive payments. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, we have some service providers that maybe didn't complete the attestation or haven't completed the background check or maybe haven't linked their bank account in ClassWallet. Those are all examples of reasons why perhaps a vendor is listed as no on ready to receive payments. Okay. If you find yourself on this list and you are listed as no, and you would want to contact our customer support team to see what it is that you are missing so that we can help you become a yes here so that families can issue a payment to you. Okay? So that's one way families will be able to connect with you. Okay? The second way is through their pay vendor tile. So in ClassWallet, this is where they'll actually start to initiate a payment to you. But they can also use this functionality just to search for vendors. However, this functionality is not as detailed as that list that I just showed you guys. Okay. This list just shows the family simply the vendor name along with the address if you did make that publicly visible in your vendor settings. But if they want more information, more detailed information as to contact information, different rates and stuff, then the best place to for families to find that information is through that public facing list on the department's website. Alrighty, so a couple important things to remember. For the 25-26 school year, ESTF accounts will be funded quarterly starting in July 2025. And as I mentioned, that already did begin early last week. So families did receive their first quarterly disbursement on July 21st. And for this program, there is no reimbursement. So families should not be paying out of pocket for services provided that can be used, that ESTF funds could be used to pay for because they will not be reimbursed. They have to submit that payment through ClassWallet. Then again, all purchases and transactions are being reviewed by program administrators to ensure that it complies with ESTF program guidelines. The transaction looks good and the payment and the service that was provided is an eligible expense, and the invoice guidelines are all met, and the invoice uploaded by the family, then the transaction will be approved. If not, then the transaction will be rejected. Once that transaction is approved, you will receive those funds settled into your bank account within 2 to 10 business days of the approval date. And then if a payment is rejected, that parent will receive an email notification with the details and the funds will be credited back to their ClassWallet account. You will not receive notification if a payment is rejected. You will only see notification if a payment is approved. And then for the next school year, the renewal process will begin on November 1st of this year. So ClassWallet and the South Carolina Department of Education will be sending out more information once that renewal period is approaching for families. Okay. And then a provider could be removed from the program at any time for failing to comply with program guidelines. And you will be required to certify that you will continue to comply with program guidelines on an annual basis. Okay. And then some general information and questions about security. Us here at ClassWallet, our number one priority is to make sure that our students and service provider information is safe. And we do have a dedicated team that whose sole role in ClassWallet is to make sure that our security protocols are being met every day. And we do have a dedicated knowledge base article on the security measures and protocols that ClassWallet has in place. So if you would like to read more on that, please visit the knowledge base article linked on slide 30. Okay. And lastly, you have our ClassWallet customer support team here to assist you with any questions you may have regarding your ClassWallet registration. Maybe you need to update that bank account information that you initially linked in your account, or the status of a payment. Those are all things our team can assist with. And you can reach us in a couple different ways. So you can start a live chat directly through your ClassWallet account. You can email us at help@classwallet.com, or you can call the number listed here. Our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Alrighty, now we'll open up the floor to some questions. Okay, someone says you're not able to access the links I put on the chat. Please feel free to reach out to our customer support team. We'll be happy to resend all the links. Someone here is asking, do we have one overall ClassWallet account or do we have an account for each state where we are approved vendors? It's a great question. You might be a service provider that partners or that is a service provider for multiple programs that partner with ClassWallet. If you applied using the same email address for all those programs, then you'll only have one ClassWallet account, and then everyone across all the different programs will be able to see your same direct pay vendor account. Now, if you did apply using a different email address for different programs, then you'll likely have separate ClassWallet accounts because the invitation is tied to the email address on the application. So on the parent side, after they upload an invoice, are they provided a number or proof that a request was submitted? So yes, families do receive a confirmation email letting them know that the transaction has been submitted. They also view that information on their personal transactions report. So if a family goes to their personal transactions report, they'll be able to see a history of all the transactions they submitted. If they don't see a certain transaction that they thought they submitted there, it would be 99% that it was not submitted and they should try again. And then what's the time frame between invoice upload and approval? Currently, it is 2 to 5 business days from the time that the transaction is submitted to the time that the order should have a decision on whether it's approved or rejected. However, that time frame may differ just depending on order volume at this time.
So let me jump in and grab a couple here. I've seen a couple questions on, are there still funds available for parents to apply? Or are you funded or are you out of funds? So how I would answer that is this: we've reached our 10,000 student cap. We're now operating with a wait list of over 3,000 students, but we are operating a wait list. So there are ways for parents to, if they have already started a FACTS application, they can complete that and get into the primary wait list. If they have not, then they can jump on our website and fill out a form and get on the secondary. Um, it's we have all the funds. When I say it's fully funded, we got all the funding from the legislature that we're going to need for this year. So we're a fully funded program. The student scholarships, we've met the cap. There's plenty of funds to continue to pay for those scholarships throughout the year. That's what I mean when I say we're fully funded. And that's what I mean when I say we've met our cap, but we have a wait list. And I hope that makes some sense there. Then I've also got a vendor that asks, how do we handle refunds? You refund those to the ClassWallet account, not directly to the parent. We cannot allow any reimbursements to go to parents. So it's important that you, if you have a situation like that, that you refund to the ClassWallet account. And then the third one I was going to jump on. Somebody asks, you said that companies need to collect demographic information, high school graduation information. That's actually just for schools. That's not something you do not, as a curriculum vendor or even as a tutoring vendor, you do not have to worry about graduation information. That's meant for the schools. Is there a way for a vendor to confirm a student has been awarded funding prior to payment? Shoot me an email. My email, and Manuel will put this in the chat. My email is estfprogram@ed.sc.gov, and we can definitely check that for you and make sure. Um, Generally speaking, that's something that we have been able to do for a number of our vendors.
Okay, someone's asking, how can a provider request information about why a specific invoice was denied? So the family that submitted the invoice will receive a detailed explanation as to why the invoice was denied. So you can reach out to the family and they should be able to let you know. Okay. Is a vendor profile you enter specific for South Carolina ESTF or for other ClassWallet states for which you participate as well? Great question. If you only have one direct pay vendor account, and that one account is tied to multiple programs, then that information will be reflected on all the programs, not just ESTF. So if you are putting that information there, like a description or anything, I would say make it a little bit more general as different programs do have different approved expenses. So maybe something that is approved for ESTF is not approved for another program. So that way you mitigate confusion from families. Yeah. I've had families say that they have initiated payment, but they are not showing up in the ClassWallet account. How long before a parent initiates payment before it typically shows up in ClassWallet for the first time? So I would say it shows up immediately on the parent's ClassWallet account. So on the student's account, it shows up immediately after they submit the transaction. They'll see their balance drops, it depletes from whatever transaction that they submitted, even if that transaction is still pending review. And then they have that order history again in that personal transactions report. You as a vendor see it in your ClassWallet account after it has been approved. If it's been rejected, you won't see it in your ClassWallet account. And again, approval time frame or review time frame is 2 to 5 business days at this time.
Do the families have to reside in South Carolina? Yes, they do. That's by law. We only service students that are South Carolina residents, and we ensure that all of our residents uh, can prove their residency as part of their application. Manuel, can you post I know we did this yesterday. Can you post that DSS provider link that I know you've got handy because you
Yes.
always have that handy?
Yes. 1 second.
That'll answer this other question. And then I will answer this one. What is the criteria for residency? Where do you live? Can you prove that you live inside the state of South Carolina? I'll need, what does it say in your driver's license? What does it say on the bills that you get, whether it's your power bill or your water bill, those sorts of things. Um, that's it's that. Yeah, let me explain this one. So Brian asks, with the reporting requirements, a family's income level was listed. How do we collect that as a private school? You don't. What documentation does the SCDOE want to see with the reporting requirements? What we're going to get that family income level, all of those kinds of things from their application. So we already have that. We have that through our vendor facts. What we want to see in terms of documentation is which students graduated so that we know, hey, we're pulling that back and pulling that off. And then the other thing that we'll need if you're a school is the testing, the assessment information that we need. But if you give us that information for students that are ESTF recipients, then we can take it from there. If a family moves to South Carolina, how long before they can apply? As quickly as they can get a bill or a driver's license. Can you share the fund drop dates for Q2 through Q4? Yes, and we should have that. Yeah, Manuel is now pulling it up. It's on or before September 30, December 31, or February 28th. So what we've attempted to do here is for this second year of the program, I think what we noticed in the market is the government definition of a quarter is not the same as a school definition of a quarter or a semester. So we're trying to have these funding dates more closely aligned to how schools bill their kids and their parents and make sure that our funding is matching how you're expecting to see that funding come in. Can tutors hired by my organization be reimbursed for background check fees? That is a question for you and your tutors. If you would like to reimburse them for that, that is absolutely fine with us. We're agnostic on that question. Can you explain testing requirements a little bit more? So the law specifically says that for grades 3 and up, either a formative or summative assessment must be given. So we expect to see the assessment results from those. The a type of the formative would be MAP or iReady or STAR. Those three have all been approved by the department. SC Ready, which is the one that our state does, can be used. Iowa can be used in lieu of SC Ready as a summative assessment. The summative assessments are once at the end of the year, as opposed to the formative, which are the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. We are in the middle of linking studies that would approve both Stanford and the CLT tests. The other thing that would work as a summative test for your high schoolers would be the PSAT, the SAT, or the ACT. So any college prep test we can accept as well.
Thank you, Joshua, for going over those. That website that I had recently just shown, that is the program website. This has a lot of helpful resources. It includes a recorded webinar. It includes a participant guide, FAQs for families, FAQs for service providers, and an education service provider guide. We'll also be posting the link to this training as on the website as well. And we recently just concluded our series of webinars for families, which will also be posted on the program website. So that is your go-to place for all program resources. Okay. Any other questions before we wrap up? Okay. Alrighty, with that, we will conclude today's webinar. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for submitting those amazing questions. If there are any questions that maybe you think of After this webinar, please feel free to reach out to the ClassWallet team. We'll be more than happy to help. And again, that program website is your go-to place for all program resources. Thank you, Joshua and Mika, for joining me today and for answering the questions. And we look forward to continuing to work with you and supporting South Carolina families. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.